Hello, everybody. Welcome to Build or Buy. It's about that time. Want to thank everybody for being here. For those of you that are online that are watching, thanks for joining us. We meet every Wednesday from 1 to 3. This is how to build or buy computers. We talk about building, buying, and upgrading computers. The new version of Windows is out, version 1709. Started coming down last night. I got it on one of my computers. Anybody else got 1709 yet? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it took a while. Depending on what kind of connection you had. Is it worth it? I don't know. Some of the stuff I was interested in are not some of the big things they talked about. Some of the big things Microsoft talked about. I'll show you some links. It's been a couple of weeks since we met last. In fact, I guess what we ought to talk about is welcome, because we weren't here last week. The facilities were not available, and I had a colonoscopy, so that was exciting. Glad that's behind me. Pun intended. Anyway, I've got about 90 different items for talking points, so we're not going to get to all that stuff, but some of it you can take a look at it, and some of it I'm going to bounce around. I want to talk a little bit about, because this is the first Wednesday, about the cloning, imaging, and backup, and something that we've never done is doing a recovery disk in Windows with what is there in Windows 10. And because I have Windows 1709 on a computer, there's a couple of features that I want to show you that's not been talked about a whole lot that are of particular interest to me that I think you might be interested in. And I've got a couple of keyboard shortcuts I'm going to show you as we progress and it gets to the point where it's appropriate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the talking points on build or buy. Let's go over to computer number 4. Let's go to computer number 4, if you would, please. Thank you. And down at the bottom, for those that are interested in construction, because I'm always interested in construction and technology, I found this on Digital Trends. There's a new spray cement that could help older buildings. And what's interesting is they've got a compound in this that keeps the concrete pliable so that it will give a little bit. Now, this is still just a research project, but it's in the works, so it'll be a matter of time before that comes to market. But the fact that they have that could also help buildings, even if you're not in a earthquake-prone area, like we get buildings that shift. If you could spray this concrete stuff, it looks like they're spraying it like gunite. There's a video that goes with it. And as this stuff sets up, any building that has a shifting slab, I would think this would help that as well if you got concrete walls. Okay, going on through Wi-Fi, this is of particular interest. I've got a link up from Extreme Tech about crack attacks, defeat Wi-Fi security for most devices. There was an issue with the security threat, Ubiquity. It's been patched with the Ubiquity devices that are here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to mention, anytime we ever show a link up here at the meeting that cannot be seen, those at home can see it. The reason we can't is because the firewall is set up here at Chapelwood to protect us. So when there's an issue with some of those places overseas where the attacks come from, we're blocked from getting to those sites because they're blocked from us. Now, I posed this question to Bond about what was going on, and I'd forgotten about all this. And this is for our protection. So he said, I can open up those IPs. Like for Lee and Lee, I said, leave it like it is. It's not worth the trouble just for us. But I'm telling you, that's what's going on. And if we can't get to a manufacturer's site, we don't know until we get here. But when you get home, it'll work. And for those of you that are online, it'll work for you guys now. And I don't have anything up on Lee and Lee, but I'm just saying, whenever it happens and you get that message up about the firewall, that's what's going on. Okay, let's go on over to the other talking points. The Fall Creators Update, as I mentioned, lots going on with the Fall Creators Update. The major stuff that's going on with the Fall Creators Update, I have no interest in, but we should at least mention it. For those of you that use the facilities within Windows, specifically on this particular computer, let's go to computer number 3, if you would, please. Let's put that up on screen, flip it over. There you go. Leave me a backup, not the same thing for backup. Okay, on this particular computer, the first thing I'm going to show you is on the taskbar. When I right-click the taskbar and I go to Task Manager, in fact, let me, I'm going to show you another keyboard shortcut while I'm at it. See if this will come in on it. And it's going to work. Yep. Okay. I'm set up with dual screens, and I wasn't sure how that was going to behave today. It's going to behave pretty good. Well, hold my fingers. Cross my fingers. On the task manager, when I bring the task manager up, got to go find it. Up here at the top left, I'll zoom back in on it. I'm using a keyboard shortcut that Windows already has configured to allow me to get to the magnifier. I found it by accident. So here's the task manager. And I'm going to go to more detailed for the view. And now I'm going to go over to the side of this, and you're going to see when I get this over in the screen, because remember I'm on dual monitors. If you notice on the right, there's now a GPU monitor. GPU and GPU engine. And it tells me what my video card is doing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm always curious when I'm doing something with the computer because I want to know who's doing all the work. Is it the CPU or is it the GPU? And yeah, we've got utilities. We can take a look at the video card and tell what the chipset is and all that good stuff, but I want to know who's doing the work, especially if I'm building a machine that I'm going to do video editing with. So that to me is a nice little feature. Can we get a mic for Ed?
Ed.
Yes, sir.
Jeep.
Closer.
That column.
Closer.
Hold that up a little bit.
Column on there.
Did I put what on?
The GPU column.
The GPU column was already there. As soon as I installed build 1709,
Yeah.
that was already there.
Mine didn't do that.
Yeah.
I've got everything but the GPU.
Well, let me come over there and take a look. If the mics are cutting in and out, we're having difficulty with the antennas, we need to upgrade the mics.
It's probably me.
No, it's probably the mics. Let me take a look at yours. And you got 1709?
Yes, sir.
Let me do a right click here on the desktop.
Sure.
And I'm going to go to Home, go to System, and go down here to About. And I'm just going to double check. And yes, you got 1709. Right there it is. But you ain't got it. And that's a first. Well, it may not be dedicated, and that may be the issue for dedicated, but I thought even an APU on here would show up. It should show up under two places. CPU, and it should show up under this list for GPU, and it doesn't show over here either. That's interesting. So I'm going to right click on here and see what your video is. Graphics options.
This is a very cheap machine.
It's an ASUS. Let's see. It's an Intel graphics. That's what I was curious about. Anyway, under processes, that's where it would be. So this is not dedicated graphics. I'm surprised. I still would have thought it would have shown up, but this is only the second computer I've looked at. When I first read about this, I said, you know, I like that idea, but it's a game thing. Thanks, Ben, for doing that. Appreciate it. And I want to thank Greg and Lou for running the switch today. So that's two computers I've looked at on 1709. On that laptop, it does not show it. On this desktop, it does. And I'm real curious because you say that's a low-end laptop machine. That's ironic because how old is that? A year old? 2 years old? 5 years old? Now that's interesting because they said Microsoft is supposed to be putting build 1709 on newer computers. But for you to have it on a 5-year-old computer, I've got other computers that are newer that it has not been offered to yet. And I'm curious they chose the Ryzen machine to put it on first of all the machines that I run. I found that really curious. So we've seen two machines. This one shows it, yours does not. And I'll show you the other tab. If I go under Processes and go to Performance, and I go down here on Performance, and it shows GPU 0. And I click on that, and it'll show me what's going on. And I can see video encode, video decode. I'm curious to try this eventually as I'm working to see what's going on. Because you guys know me, I like to have my gadgets on the side. And I like that gadget on the side because I know my CPU is what my cores are doing. but I've never had anything really good to tell me what the video card is doing. So it's going to be interesting to watch this and see how it goes. Yes, Jack?
The video card information shows what percentage of the dedicated memory on the card is working, correct? So it makes, if that's the case, it makes sense that if you don't have any dedicated memory on the card, why waste space for the column?
It may be. I don't know enough about it. I found out about it 2 or 3 days ago. And when I found out about it, then the next thing I know last night, Microsoft said, we're going to install this new version on your machine. I said, you think so? I thought, well, let's get it over with. About like having my teeth pulled. Not something I was looking forward to, but I said, if we're going to do it, let's go for it. Because if this works, I'm going to tell everybody about it. And if it don't, I'm going to tell everybody about it. So I'll do some research in it to see what I can find out, but this is a new animal to me. I can change the graph from single engine to multiple engines. That's curious. The video encode, again, graph summary view, change the view, CPU. That's interesting. Scroll down here just a little bit. View CPU, memory, disk, network, or GPU. And I just went down the list. And I clicked on the GPU. Now this also shows utilization dedicated GPU memory. Dedicated GPU, shared GPU. It says dedicated GPU is 8 gig. Shared GPU is 16 gig. But I'm curious about the video encode and decode. Now the magnifier, I'm going to click out of that. I'm going to show you how I got that up. Y'all know whenever we worked on a computer, we said, okay, let's go to the magnifier and call it up. The magnifier is already configured. There's nothing you have to call up. With a keyboard shortcut, and I'll tell you what it is because it works in 2 places. With the Windows flag and the plus or minus key, or with the control plus or minus key. So the first one I'm going to do is with that application from Task Manager, you see where my mouse is at. And that should be the center of focus. When I hold down the Windows flag, press the plus key, that comes up. It's just there. There's nothing to configure. I found it by accident. I was working on a computer and doing something. I hit the wrong key. And that happened, and I said, wait a minute, how'd that happen? So then I was doing something again another time, and the other one I'm going to show you works in the browser. Let's go over here to computer number 4, and I'm going to show you in the browser right now. I have it set at 100%. So if I hold down the control key and press the plus, get that unhighlighted, press the plus key, if you'll notice up there, it starts showing 120%. And I'm bumping up in the browser. So it's 2 keyboard shortcuts. The Windows flag, plus or minus. And in the browser, control plus or minus. Did you guys know about that? You did?
No.
Well, why didn't you tell us about it? Because I didn't ask. Not at all. We're going to have to keep a mic over there on Ed. Not at all. I come across it by accident. I wanted to share it with you guys because I thought it was kind of neat and a big deal. Because I remember last time we were working on Joe's machine, we were trying to figure out where the magnifier was. So we had to call it up so we could use it. We don't have to call it up. It's just there. You just hit that Windows flag key plus, and you can zoom in on anything. So a little bit about Windows 1709. That's the one thing that I thought was a big deal, showing the GPU. And the keyboard shortcut should work in any version of Windows forward. I don't know how far back it goes because I just discovered it. I'm sure somebody will let us know. So going back to the stuff on talking points, which is number 4. Yeah, input number 4. Thank you. If you want to get the Fall Creators update ahead of them pushing it to you, there's a link for that from the Windows Experience blog, talking point number 89. And then I'm going to move into some stuff with the Threadripper for those that are interested. Anybody been to Costco lately? Did you notice that Costco is now selling a Ryzen computer?
The one I went to, apparently, which is the one over on Richmond,
Yeah.
they have nothing. I mean, they've got 2 or 3 laptops and a couple of desktops. Apparently, their holiday supplies are not in, but they've got zilch over there.
Yes, Joe. Oh, Joe's getting it now. Let's go to Joe's computer input number 1. Flip it over. Thank you. Leave a backup. Well, this is interesting. Joe is now getting the feature update to Windows 10 1709, and he's doing that on a hardwired connection. So, preparing to install updates 24%. That should hopefully go fast. If it's doing like they claim, where they're looking at other machines, it could be pulling some of the updates from this other machine that's on the same network. Remember, the wired network up here, we have 2 networks, the wired and the wireless. The wireless, you guys are on Comcast. The wired, we're on AT&T Fiber. Yes, Joe?
This is an 8-year-old machine also.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, Ed?
One thing, when I got this 1709 update,
Yes.
when it finally got on the machine and it came to the restart,
Yes.
I couldn't restart it.
What did it do? Hang?
It would not restart it, and it gave me an error message.
Oh, what was it?
I don't remember what it was, but I read how do you do this, how do you do that.
Yeah.
And what I ended up doing was going back to the original start button and going up to restart there. Clicked restart, ran through its process, then I went back to restart in the update section, and it restarted.
Interesting. So a little hiccup, but you got it on there.
Yeah, I wanted people to hear that because
Yeah. How long have you had it on there?
2 days.
2 days?
Yeah.
Interesting. I got mine last night. Joe's getting his right now. Anybody else having 1709? Because we were talking about this 2 weeks ago when when Dwayne said, thanks. It's been a long 2 weeks, Dwayne. I had a colonoscopy last week, so I'm still happy. When Dwayne said he had a friend that had it on there, so we're getting it. Everybody's getting it. And y'all know how to go find it. Do I need to show you that? I'll show you how I get to it. There's a couple of ways. I like the old WinVer, which is easy to do. You know, you bring up the command prompt, type WinVer, that'll pop that up. But the other way is just right-click anywhere on the desktop. Let's go to computer number 3, please. Computer number 3. There you go. Okay, anywhere on the desktop, and I'm going to just click on something. I'll go to Display Settings. I'm going to click on Home, and then right here, the first one, System Notifications. I'll scroll down to the bottom of that, and the About. Let me zoom in on that. See if it'll stay put. About. And then over here, and we've got it. And this will tell us. Let me get this over where you can see it. And I'll scroll down. And the Windows specifications. Windows 10 Pro, version 1709, OS build 16299.19. So, it's an easy way to find it. Ask me about it later, I may forget it. So let's go back over now to computer number 4, if you would please. Bring up computer number 4. Thank you. Okay, so back to the talking points. I mentioned about Costco. I'm going to go over here to Costco's website. And Costco is showing this particular computer in the store, but on the website, and that's how I first found out, was the email that said the product is back-ordered, expected in 2 or 3 weeks. But when I went to the store, let me see, those are both the same. Let me back up one. Yeah. When I went to the store, that was in stock. These other 4, which are 3 Dell, 1 Lenovo, and 1 HP, originally, supposedly the Lenovo was the first one licensed to build a Ryzen machine, but this is just the Ryzen 7. These are all the bottom end, 1700X. But this one down here for $600, which is an HP. If someone's trying to decide whether you want to build a computer or whether you want to buy a computer, then you can think about, okay, if I don't want to build a computer because that's not where I'm at, and I'm happy with buying a computer, to me that looks pretty interesting. It's an HP, it's a good brand. It's the bottom end of a Ryzen, but it gets you in for $600. Now, if somebody's looking to spend the least amount of money as possible, I like bang for the buck. That's got possibilities. But if you're interested in something a little higher end, they've got these 3 Dells and a Lenovo for the price. You know, when you look at what we do on Build or Buy, which brings me to another point. How many of you watch those events that AMD does for partners? I usually put the links up when that occurs. Anybody watched any of those lately? Nobody lately? Okay. The last one they put up, which I found most curious, first let me back up. When AMD does these partner events, they'll usually have a PDF or something of documents where you can download and look at the notes. This last one they did about DIYers had no notes in it. And the audio is horrendous. And the lady talking has a lot of good information, but she sounds like she's talking to somebody on a cell phone. It's horrible, horrible audio. But the presentation, if you want to kill 30 minutes, the gist of it was DIYers from 4 different countries. And my first thought was DIYers. Okay, we talk about building and buying computers. I never got the survey, but as I listened, they used a third party. So if somebody sent that from a third party, you know, I'm suspect of a lot of junk that we get. So depending on who sent it, I may have discounted it and given it the deep 6. But they checked with people in the US, Germany, China, and it was curious of the thing. I'll show you some of the topics. Give me. Can I raise my volume? Over there. Whatever is going on with the speakers up there, I needed Tommy to set it. There's nothing I can do to adjust that without stopping what I'm doing. I hear audio here. It would take, that was something that we should have done before we started. I'll have to go up here to the middle. I don't even know if this side's plugged in. So while I'm looking, what we're going to have to start doing is doing an audio check. And if folks will get here early so we can do that when Tommy's setting up. Because first of all, is that microphone audio system here or the microphone there? Or both? Interesting. Is on it. It's on 15. Yep. If the mic, and it has happened before. And 1510 shows live. Testing 1, 2. Yeah, 1510 works. But will it work when I get on the other side of the room? Testing 1, 2. It's working now. I don't know. Remember, when you're talking in the handhelds, you've literally got to eat the mic and you've got to hold it up. You can't hold it down. It's got
See you. Okay.
There.
Yeah.
Mics, we have until 2020 before we have to change mics. We change over to the Shure mics, they'll work irregardless. But I'll probably put an antenna mast up as well. So, are you still having trouble hearing on that side of the room? Okay, I don't know what's going on over there. I have anything I adjust on our audio rig, everything here stays set. Whatever's been done to that, it gets changed every time we come in. So I have no idea what's going on.
The sound is normal over here.
Sounds normal over there? Okay, thanks. Yes, Jeff, Ben. We had some trouble with it in the past. Okay, so there's nothing I can do about the audio over there, but we'll be sure and mention it to Tommy next week if there's anything that can be done. One of these speakers had some noise coming out of it, and this may have been it. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing. I'm not real sure. I hear audio, but I'm not sure where it's at. Sounds the same to me. Testing 1, 2. When we get sidetracked like that, it breaks my train of thought. So if anybody wants to get up here early when we set up and help with stuff like that, that would really be helpful before the meeting. Okay, I was talking to you about the Ryzen CPUs and the Threadrippers and the offer at Costco. I've got a link up on the AMD Ryzen that goes straight into, I believe that's straight into AMD site. Networking World, I got a link up. Western Digital plans 40 terabyte drives. That's going to be interesting. And this brings me to talking point 85. Newegg is now doing a live stream. In fact, there's a couple of events. One tomorrow is Newegg. They do that every Thursday. And you can click on the link, and it starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Another stream that's occurring tomorrow. I had that in email. If I can find that right quick, I'll share it with you. That is from Corel. Anybody that uses Paint Shop Pro? The new version of Paint Shop Pro is out. You using Paint Shop Pro?
Yeah.
There was a deal.
Huh?
There was a deal not too long ago. In fact, the best price I found for Paint Shop Pro was at, because I use Paint Shop Pro on a machine as a result of what Robert Collier did. It got my interest again. I have an old copy, didn't bother to upgrade. I bought a new one. Anyway, the latest deal was at B&H. It was the Paint Shop Pro Ultimate version for like $30.
They're offering an upgrade right now to me. They keep pushing it every time I touch the product. They want $25 for an upgrade to the latest, greatest.
$25. Well, this was a full-blown, full install copy, no upgrade.
I will double the price if they'll send me a disc, but they won't.
It's interesting. This copy that I bought was on a disc. It was cheaper to buy the disc than it was to buy the download, which I found very curious. Okay, back over to the computer. We're up on the inputs. Okay. Let's see. We had. I've got some information here about. Oh, this is something else that also relates to talking point number 84. Teradek. There's a link, and this is interesting because you're going to be hearing a lot more about HEVC, H.265. In the documentation about the new version of Windows 1709, that build, one of the codecs that will be installed is the HEVC, which is the H.265. And I've got a document link up here on BuilderBuy. It'll take too long to find it, but if you breeze through it, I may come across it and I'll show you. But back over to the computer, if you take a look at this from Teradek, Teradek does a lot of stuff for streaming and wireless professional products. 5 reasons why Apple's HEVC H.265 is a huge deal for mobile video. Remember, it's all about bandwidth. And with H.265, you can get more information with less bandwidth. Whereas with what we're using right now, H.264, it takes a lot of bandwidth. For example, we're streaming at 1080, and we are up on YouTube. If we want to stream in 4K, we have to change, number one, the codec, and number two, we have to change the streaming device. Because for us to stream 4K, the streaming device we use right now only goes to 1080. But if we change the device and change the codec, we can use the same bandwidth that it takes to stream 1080 on H.264. Using that same bandwidth with H.265, we can stream 4K. So I'll give you a comparison. So let's go back over to the links. Okay, now John had sent me some information. John Lumb, where's John? There you are. About your PC build. Do you remember that information that you wanted to share with everybody? Do I have that letter?
Hang on.
Do you have that? I was going to say, if you have that letter, great. If you don't, I may be able to find it.
Sorry, I didn't think of printing out a copy.
It was great information and great advice. The point of it was, though, you finally got your machine running. It took a great deal of, well, you ran into some problems. Do you remember any of that information to share? I guess what I'll have to do is I'll put it in a document. We'll put it up on BuilderBuy. But you finally got your machine running. That was the gist of it. And that's what counted. That's what mattered. You got a case that you had hoped would be a little bit smaller to make it easier to bring it up here. But as it turned out, that smaller case, you don't have a burner. And your case is really not that much smaller.
Yeah, my whole goal, my original idea on this was to build a physically smaller computer.
Right.
Because I live in a small apartment. So.
And how'd that work?
I bought a micro ATX and then shopped for a good case. And I found this case that I really liked. But then after I got well into the build on this thing, I actually kind of measured things, and I realized that this case, although it's shaped differently from your traditional mid-tower, it's about the same volume. So
it has a bigger footprint, but it doesn't stick up so far as the
Trade-off.
thing. So, because when you start getting analytical about it, the motherboard is smaller, but all the other pieces you put in it, you don't have micro ATX cooling fans and micro ATX RAM sticks and so on. Everything else is the same size.
And the cooling, yeah.
Yeah, so I did not achieve my goal of saving a lot of footprint on the desk, but I got a really nice computer out of it.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful case.
Yeah, it works, and the computer has the case has some nice features that it's kind of like, well, why don't other people do it that way? This is really, really handy the way this is set up.
It was beautiful. The thing you had, the biggest problem was that you turned out you had a bad motherboard.
Yeah.
And it happens sometimes, especially using this new chipset with a new processor. But right now it does everything you want it to.
Yeah, it does. And the other thing that occurs to me after doing this whole process, that the micro ATX motherboards, there are far fewer of them to choose from than if you get a regular ATX, of which there is a vast array of them available. So your choices are kind of limited. So if I were going to do it again, I probably wouldn't bother with the micro ATX. I'd just look for a small ATX case.
Well, it was not an exercise in futility. You had to go through that to experience it. See, my thing is always the chipset comes first. I look for the chipset, then I look for the motherboard. But with, for example, going with a case, that is a whole nother way of looking at cases, because I've always looked at cases based on the features for what I want to do. Now I'm having to look at cases based on which can handle the radiator I want to use. So that's made me have to spin that around a little bit. And that's, you were dealing with a case issue too. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do some stuff on cases later, but I won't bring them up here and bore everybody with it. I'll do some videos up on YouTube. You can look at it if you want to.
I'm glad I did it, but it was really frustrating at the time.
Yes.
But I learned a lot.
Well, I agree. I think we all did. And I'm sorry you had a bad motherboard, but it finally got solved. It's difficult to solve big problems in a little amount of time that we have sometimes.
Right.
So I'm glad it's working for you now. Let's go back over to computer number 4, if you would, please. Thanks, John.
Dwayne?
Oh, Jack? Joe? Yes, Dwayne. Dwayne's got a comment.
Joe, my computer, the power supply. Thanks to Joe and Robert, who brought in his power supply tester while we determined my problem was a power supply. So I ordered a power supply from Newegg, got a great deal, $59 with a $20 mail-in rebate, which is the upgraded model of the Corsair that I had, because I thought somehow that would make it easier. So anyway, I get the power supply, and then I discovered that all the power, it's a, what do you call it, a semi-modular, two power lines to the motherboard are fixed. Well, first, the small one was of a shorter length.
Closer.
Was of a shorter length. That, it seems to be coming and going here. But that was not a real problem. The problem was on the power, the smaller modular power cords, they were all type 4, the L-shaped, where my connections were the old type 3, you know, the 4-hole. So I solved that problem by just using the cords from the old power supply. So I was then able to do my boot, and I picked up a internal speaker so that I could check the codes.
Did you have trouble finding an internal speaker?
Yes, I was lucky. The first guy, I walked out to Fry's, the first guy I walked out said, I don't know, go back there where they've got computers. And the second guy I talked to was knowledgeable, and he said, if we have them, they'll go over here, and found one.
What'd you pay for it?
$2 or $3.
Yeah.
It just, you know, and so I put that on. So I've got my new power supply in. I connect my monitor. I boot up, and nothing. But I've got that speaker in there, and I can hear the beep codes.
Good.
So I know it's a normal boot up, but there's nothing on the screen. And this damn monitor, I will swear I have tested it 2 or 3 times all around the house on other computers. It always works. Sure as hell, it was just flaky. I happened to have another monitor there. Put that monitor on.
Well, was it the monitor or was it the cable?
It was the monitor.
Okay.
But this is an old monitor, so I got that going, and works like a charm now.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Glad to know that. Thanks for sharing
So
that.
it works like a charm with the old power supply, the one that we thought was bad?
No, with the cables. I had to use the modular cables because they're the Type 3.
Yeah.
So I just took them off the old power supply,
Oh.
plugged them into the new power supply, so I could connect into my legacy peripherals that I've
Okay.
got.
That's dangerous because sometimes the pinouts could be different.
Well, the pinouts are the same.
Well,
Probably they're all 12 volt.
well, some power supplies I've heard of people frying their computer because they don't change the cables out.
Well, I didn't have a choice because I couldn't have all they sent me were the Type 4 cables, which is
You didn't have Molex plugs, you had the new SATA plugs.
yes, right. The new power supply was all the SATA plugs.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can get a converter.
Yeah, one thing calls for something else. What power supply did you end up buying?
It's a Corsair 550, which was
More than adequate.
more than adequate. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I've got very little stuff in there.
That's good. I'm glad it's working. Glad Joe got you up and running.
Joe's the man.
Let's go back over to computer number 4. Let's go back to the website. Let's see. I got through John Lumb. I see Wolf Crow. I've got a link up on here about choosing a find my mouse. About choosing a 4K monitor. I put this up because I find it interesting. Wolf Crow is the one I talked about 2 weeks ago that had a link up about why he was building a Ryzen machine for video editing and the specs he had in it. I thought it was some pretty good information. He's trying to sell a manual. If you want to buy the manual, that's an okay deal. If you don't worry about it. But I find what he has is informative. So if you want to look at that, because you think about building a machine, and if you're going to edit video, about the video card a lot of people are using. We've never used workstation graphics cards. So 2 weeks ago, we started talking about workstation graphics cards based on the problems that Ray Morris was having. And by the way, Ray got the card we talked about, put it in the machine, and turned out the problem was the slot the video card was sitting in. He didn't have to have a new video card per se, but he did have to have a new video card because the slot he's now got the video card in, that other card like you have, Jack, that allowed for 6 inputs is so long, it's in that little Roswell case, that in that spot it works, but when you take it out and put it down, he'd have to do some major work, which means gut it, to cut that metal out. So it's just easier to buy another video card until he builds a new machine. So I said, I'm mixed. I hope it works. I'm glad it did. I was kind of hoping it wouldn't work so that he'd build a new machine. Ray is still looking to build a new machine. It's a matter of time. And then he'll take that new card and put it in. Now, Ray bought a new card, but it's not one of the newer chipsets. And I haven't had a chance to talk to him about why. My guess is strictly based on price. He bought that older chipset. But it's a 4 gig card, does way more than what he needs. So as time goes by, I'm hoping he'll share more with us. Let's go back over now, thank you, to computer number 4. Let's see, moving on up, I've got a link from an outfit I've never heard of called GPU Boss. Their website, they've done a review of a Radeon Pro WX 7100 versus a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti. Now, a lot of people are building these video workstations, and they're using a high-end processor, but they're still using a gaming card. So there's not a lot of information out about workstation cards. And those that do have information, people that are asking for very specific pieces of information to test with. If you have a program like SolidWorks, or if you have a program, I've got some links to some other programs, if you have one of those programs to do testing with, that can be relevant. My relevancy, my point of view is still rendering. Can I use a workstation card and do rendering faster? That's what I'm going to be finding out, because to build this Ryzen machine, I'm going through methodically and testing different components. I'm researching some of the issues people are having, and I still say there's some more BIOS updates that need to come out. And with that said, the motherboard I talked about 2 weeks ago, which is the one from MSI, is still probably on my radar. I found one from ASRock that I really, really like, but I'm not interested in buying it from the two people that have it. One of them is Newegg. Have y'all heard about Newegg's problems?
No.
Well, there's a bank that claims that between Newegg and one of the suppliers that, well, they've taken them to court because they think they've taken advantage of the bank. There's a link up to the article about Newegg. You can read it. You can take of it what you will. I hope Newegg comes out of this okay, but you know, after reading the article, it had me kind of concerned. So as I go up the list, let's go back over to the computer. There, nope, let's bring up computer number 4. Let's flip that over and put that on. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, I've got some information on the Radeon RX. I've also got a link up to an unusual camera, and I always find any unusual camera unusual. And this is a large Sense 8x10 large format digital camera. Because of the camera that John Lumb's sister bought, that she still hasn't received, well, I keep seeing information about that camera, but I'm curious if anybody's got one in their hands yet. There's some other devices we've been following for the last couple of years that I hear and see information about it, but I'm curious, does anybody have them? Like that device to follow a camera that's made here in the U.S., still not available. So when I found this, it made me think of you, but it's different, but it's still related because it's new technology. So I'm going to go on up the list. Gartner has a very interesting article about the industry that will grow, and I'm going to hold this Control key and bring this article up. Well, that didn't work. Oh, wrong keyboard. Let me go back. Let's see, that was number, 77. So let me do that again. It's number 77, Extreme Tech. Gartner predicts PC industry will grow, but only one part of it. Now, Extreme Tech runs these stupid ads. If y'all noticed, Extreme Tech is getting to where they're doing like CNET. CNET used to be the #1 source. Now they got so many ads and so much junkware that they try to install with the apps you download, you can't go to it anymore. Extreme Tech.
Unchecky.
I agree, but Extreme Tech is doing this same game, and it's getting annoying. But anyway, this article that's on here talks about what portion of the market is growing, and this goes somewhat back to the information I was going to share with you about the DIY event that AMD was putting on. And what they're showing, worldwide shipments of by device type, traditional PC, ultra mobiles, total PC market, ultra mobiles, basic and utility, computing device market, mobile phones, total device market. Now, of these systems, we reached out to Gartner for clarification on device categories, and we're told that premium ultra-mobile devices are the high-end Ultrabooks and 2-in-1 designs with a starting price at or above $1,000. Those Asus Zen machines you guys bought, I would put in that class. But I still say, even in that class, those machines were bang for the buck. But they're now old because the new ones are coming out. But I still say they set a standard, and if anybody asks me about a laptop, that's what I judge laptops by. So in this market, it's about what people are doing. And right here it is. Support a wide range of scenarios require high-end system performance. Content creation, video editing, transcoding, etc. Now, this survey that AMD had done of the countries that they surveyed, gaming was a big deal. Content creation, video editing was a big deal, but the #1 was about music. People streaming music, downloading music. I'm really surprised. I would have thought video would have been #1. I would have thought audio would have been #2. But I found it most curious, and then when I found this, there was some congruency, I thought, in that. Content creation, video editing, and transcoding. And again, that's the reason for more power. And this goes back to the question that Ben asked one time. Why are we looking at the machines like this? Because we're doing more powerful things. Now, we're going to get to the cloning, imaging, and backup, and I'm going to go back to that in a minute, but I want to get through some of these talking points because I think this is some really good stuff. I've got several, as I mentioned, this YouTube, which is number 81. When you get to the top of the list, you guys ever keep track of Dancing with the Stars? Anybody? Nobody? You don't like that? Those are athletes. I find them fascinating. Have you watched Lindsey Sterling? She's been on there before and she's performed before. Well, now that she's on there, she's also come out with a new album and she's also releasing some new videos. There's one she did 3 years ago with a blind guy playing the piano who's self-taught. I've got a link up on that. It's absolutely amazing. But I've got 3 links up further up the list about Lindsey Sterling. 1 on Dancing with the Stars, 2 with her current album, and 3 with that album or with that song she did 2 or 3 years ago. And I wanted to mention that because did y'all know that she also got her start just like Jackie Ivanko did?
Who's that?
Jackie Ivanko. That's one thing the two of them have in common. Jackie Ivanko got her start on a TV show. That's how Lindsey Sterling got her start on a TV show. And if you go back and search for that episode, and you hear Piers Morgan and him talking about what he thinks she needs to do, and you look at what she's doing now, she's amazing.
I'm assuming the way you're describing her that Lindsey Sterling is not Lindsay the dancer on the show.
Yes.
It is Lindsay the dancer?
One and the same.
Okay.
When you look at how far she's come, and I believe that was back in 2000 or 2001. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the years. But there's a link to the video when you find it on YouTube. When you look and see how that girl started, and she's now performed on Dancing with the Stars, but she now is one of the stars on Dancing with the Stars. She's come a long way, which means anybody, you got to have a dream to make a dream come true. I think it's an interesting video to look at. She's one of the probably top 4, maybe top 3. She has a good chance of winning it too. Who's your favorite on Dancing with the Stars?
Oh, the celebrities or the dancers?
Well, celebrities.
I can't really say that I have one.
Can't tell yet?
No.
I'm partial to the women.
I'm in love with half a dozen of the regular girl dancers. So.
There are some beautiful women on that show.
He's got a picture of one on his laptop.
Oh, you do?
No. We went to a touring show last year, though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Interesting. When they tour, do they tour with some of the stars that have been on the show, or is it just with the professional dancers?
They had one that they had coerced into going with them, and they usually do, I think, have one that agrees to be part of the traveling group.
How'd they do? The professional.
Good. It was like watching one of the TV hours. Only 2 hours of it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Jack. So I mentioned that. I'll breeze over those videos. I won't go back to them again. You know, I've been making a big deal on talking point now number 76. I've been making a big deal about USB-C. I've got a link from MSI, and we've always said USB 3.1. Well, USB 3.1 has been renamed to USB 3. Yeah. So now you got USB 3A and USB 3C. And if it wasn't confusing enough, it's even more confusing. And after you read that article, when you try to sort it out, it just adds a little bit of the confusion. It's a good article, but if you read the article, which is up on Extreme Tech, go down and read the user comments. This goal to have a cable that'll do everything, what about when the next big standard comes out? It'll be something else. So a one cable for everything is like, y'all remember when Windows 95 came out, when we finally got USB support? It was Windows 95C, and it was the OEM version only of Windows where you had USB support. So to say there's going to be one connector to do all this, when you look back how long it's been, it's a big task. And just because you think you have the right cable, they all look the same, but it doesn't mean they're going to operate the same. That's the gist of it. And if you want to look at the article from, let's see, Extreme Tech, if you want to look at the article from MSI, it's further in the list. And I've also got a link here for a motherboard from EVGA. 2 weeks ago, I showed you guys the motherboards that were being recommended by AMD from their website. 4 brands. Each brand had 1 motherboard. Well, there are more than just those 4 brands. For example, I mentioned one a while ago, ASRock I know has 2. MSI has 1. Asus, I believe, has 2. And Gigabyte, I believe, right now has 1. But EVGA also has 1. I don't know who's selling it. Maybe you have to buy it direct. But I haven't seen it anyplace else, although I haven't been looking for it really hard. And I've got a link up here also on number 74 YouTube. I've always enjoyed on Uverse every year, I believe it was channel 1200, where they would stream the fireplace. Well, they got rid of that channel. So if anybody wants to have a fireplace streaming on your computer, put it up on your big screen TV, there's a link to one. Unless you captured that from several years ago. Here's the article on digital trends. South Korean banks sue online retailer Newegg for alleged Ponzi scheme. They're not just going after Newegg, they're going after one of the big suppliers that has offices here in Houston. Read the article if you hadn't heard about it. It's, wow, that's going to be an uphill battle for both sides. I've got a couple links on Hexus, some new laptops, and it's interesting. I heard Nick Streeter talking about the great things about his new laptop is it's got a long battery life. It starts up quick and shuts down quick. Well, there's a new battery on a new laptop, and Qualcomm Snapdragon, a PC battery life that approaches 30 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah, 30 hours. They said when they were testing that battery, they thought the app in Windows was broken because the battery kept going and going and going. Guess they ought to rename it the Everready.
No, no, don't do that.
You don't like Everready?
The name is not good for a battery like that.
Something to think about. And I've got a link up here on a day in the life of a Kiva robot. If you've ever wondered how Amazon gets done what they do, that's the Kiva robot. And I've got a link up here on Matrox because they're doing some stuff now for a 9-monitor video card where you can put 2 cards in a machine, do some amazing things, but we're still not getting the thin displays. For example, the new 4K monitors have the big fat display margin. I have that one margin on the, it's the 2.5 millimeter on that LG monitor I looked at about a month ago. That was the easiest monitor I've ever set up for $200. I thought it was high, but that's the first time I've ever plugged in a monitor and didn't have to adjust it. All the other monitors I've ever hooked up, I've had to adjust. And all the 4K monitors have a big, fat, wide margin on them. Now, I've also got a link up while I'm talking about monitors. If you ever get one of those monitors that's an odd size and your monitor won't show the full resolution like you need it, there's a custom resolution utility that will go in and interrogate that and give you that information so then once you put it into the registry, you can automatically set it. I've got a link up on that application in here as well. You'll find it as you read through it. I've got a link up here about Extreme Tech, talking about the Fall Creators Update leaves up to 30 gigs in installation files. The FAA is talking about banning laptops from checked luggage. That, I could see pros and cons for that. I think the picture they show of that has something to do with batteries catching on fire. After that thing with those, you don't hear about those lately, but those scooters that all the kids had to have, and people were plugging in to charge them, and they were burning up whatever they were around. I think that's where that issue may come from. Amazon Fire TV, I've got a link up on that. Tom's Hardware about the South Korean banks. The Windows blog, what's new in Windows 10 Fall Creators Update. Okay, as we get into some of this stuff with Windows, I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to bring this link up, number 63, what's new. The big things that Microsoft is talking about, and there's a video you can watch that goes over to YouTube, and I've got a link into that. Windows Mixed Reality, we'll get into that. A different way of doing photos, which is a little more than it's been in the past. The Mixed Reality Viewer, My People, which is kind of curious. Anybody here do Skype? Well, if you do Skype and that sort of thing, you can take those people and put them on your taskbar so you can get to them faster if you do that kind of stuff. Quick access to your top people. People first sharing, they're still pushing that. Emojis for contacts. Talking again about Cortana, Microsoft Edge. I'm going to breeze through this because the Microsoft Store, To me, that's all blah, blah, blah. The big deal they're putting out is this security with their, what's that application called? Windows Defender. Protect you against ransomware. And there's quite a few things they've done with Windows Defender to keep your computer safe. Now, I'm still using Kaspersky. I'm not like the federal government. I'm not worried about the Russians. I'm not worried about the CIA either. So, and staying productive, the Microsoft launcher, quick swipe right to left, Microsoft launcher for Android, OneDrive, find my pen if you drop it, PDF annotations and form filling, but that goes back to Microsoft Edge. Pen as a PowerPoint clicker, which is a good idea. And that reminds me, I saw a commercial, I don't have the link up, but I saw a commercial on Fox a few nights ago where somebody had come out with what looked like a fat-looking pen as a mouse pointer, where you could, on a surface, you flip it around, it's got a regular writing pen on the other end. I'll find that information and I'll put a link up on BuilderBuy next week and share it with you. But with the new Windows and some of these new features, it'd come in handy. Now this one I think is kind of handy. How many of you use the calculator very much? Okay, well now with the calculator, there's a currency converter. To do that in the past, I either had to go to a website or I had to install one of the gadgets to get currency conversion. Because you know a lot of sites you go to, they'll say something's in pounds or something in, you know, another currency, and this will do the currency conversion right within the calculator.
If it's not in dollars, I don't worry about it.
True, true. Well, you know, most websites, when you log in and create an account, you choose the currency.
Right.
For example, one site I use for some of the music stuff is Plugin Boutique. Plugin Boutique shows, I believe, pounds by default, but they show 4 different currencies. Once you create a account, log into that account, you choose the currency and everything behaves accordingly. But that's still nice to have. But I agree, if it's not in US dollars, I move on usually. Recovering PIN and password from the lock screen once you verify your account and identity. Eye control, and some of these things as it relates back to this presentation on DIYers, I wanted more information on what they were looking at for DIYers. I found the statistics, I say they, AMD. I found the statistics interesting, but not a one of us in here got that information about that survey. Oh, for this particular link? Okay, on BuilderBuy, I am on What's New in Windows, and this is number 63.
Number 63.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am. Talking
good.
points number 63. Windows Experience blog.
Oh, thank you.
What's new in Windows 10 Fall Creators Update? Now, I've got 2 other links. I've got several here from Microsoft, but I got 2 other links that, according to the URL, they look like they're the same, but they're not. One is supposed to be for users. The other is supposed to be for IT pros. And the one for IT pros is the one that talks about being able to install Windows with the HEVC codec. And I'll get to it in a minute. Now, here's the link I want to talk to you about mixed reality, AR and VR, travel and streaming, then the MSI and the USB 3.1, generation 1 and 2 explained. Windows mixed reality, augmented reality and virtual reality. Do we need to go into that and explain the difference? There's an article up here with a link somebody had mentioned, a more powerful graphics adapter to do this with. I'm saying, okay, define more powerful. Yeah. What chipset are we talking about? How much RAM are we talking about on that video card? They don't mention that. You just say more powerful. Now, if the new Windows 1709 is all about Windows mixed reality, augmented reality versus virtual reality. Virtual reality doesn't have to be just gaming. I've seen where virtual reality is used for, like, walking into a kitchen, seeing cabinet layouts, or if you want to tour someplace in Europe, or if you want to buy a new house, taking some kind of a tour. Now, what's going to be curious with the augmented reality, where you'll be able to put on special glasses and have the computer self-contained, and you get these heads-up displays as you're walking along. And I think that's going to be the most promising. I'm a little concerned about the virtual reality, but that's just my take on it. For most of us, doesn't amount to a hill of beans, unless you're creating content for those environments. Now, this link from MSI, I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'll bring this up, number 61. USB 3.1 Generation 1 and Generation 2 explained. This is a good article to read about USB 3 being launched in 2008. And USB 3 we'll bring this up a little bit bigger. USB 3 is now USB 3.1 Generation 1, and USB 3.1 is now USB 3.1 Generation 2. I've also seen another article that said USB 3.1 had been renamed to USB 3. I'm pointing this out because it's getting confusing. I'm pointing this out because even the cables you buy doesn't mean it's going to work to do everything you want. And even if you come up here and ask us, we won't know even by looking at it. So you have to be very aware of what you're buying and what you're trying to do. And just because you're trying to do one thing with one cable doesn't mean you can do something else with that same cable. That's my point. So Generation 1 and Generation 2. Depends on who's writing the information and what they're calling it. But this is from MSI, and this is how MSI refers to it. So when we see MSI documentation, we have a relevance to know what they're talking about. Generation 1, 5 gigabit. Generation 2, 10 gigabit. And it shows boards, what it's working on, where it's at. And 2013 is when that came about. Well, guess what? This is 2017, so it's been a long time coming. Now, everything we're doing and all the computers we're building, and there's another link we're going to get to in a minute as we go up the tree, we're building with computers and we're buying motherboards that are giving us PCI Express 3.0. There's a new PCI Express 4.0 coming out. And when that new PCI Express 4.0 comes out, I'm getting tongue-tied. All this essentially will go away because we'll be talking new chipsets. New chipsets, new video cards, and as we get to the information, it's exciting as you read about it, but it's new chipsets, new processors. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Because we just now got on the AMD motherboards all these new toys, one of them being PCI Express 3.0 and USB 3.1. So AMD skipped some of the technologies that Intel was embracing, but AMD is there now and doing it with a vengeance. But when PCI Express 4.0 comes out, it's a whole new game. So I'm going to go back over to Build or Buy, the talking points. Okay, the AMD Partner Hub, I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'll bring this link up, this talking point number 60. If any of you are interested in this information, this is what they do with the partners, why we use cookies, I'll get rid of that. And right down here is a link. There's motherboards, part 1 and 2, AM4 motherboards, and the one that deals with the, well, I don't see it. The X399, oh, there it is, the DIYers. Meet the experts. It's some interesting information. I did some screen captures. If you're interested in looking at it, be prepared. Turn the volume up, and it's really bad audio. Like I said, it's like listening to somebody that's been talking on a cell phone too much. Okay, I'm going to go back over to Build or Buy. Extreme Tech, AMD's back into black with the Ryzen. AMD Ryzen with the Radeon Vega graphics. Now, this Ryzen could be a big deal. We don't know yet until we see some information as in who's going to have these, but number 58 is a press release. I'll hold down the control key and bring this up. AMD Ryzen mobile processors with Radeon Vega graphics. AMD introduces the world's fastest processor for ultra-thin notebooks, a Ryzen mobile processor with Radeon Vega graphics. And you can sign up to be notified when systems are available. That, again, could be a game changer. Don't know. It could be a real bang for the buck computer. Should be a faster computer, but anything new is going to be the premium, but we'll see. Right now, they're doing a pretty good job with their pricing. Oh, and also, where's Jim Fallon? Jim, you had sent me a link 2 or 3 weeks ago about the price of the Ryzen. Oh, excuse me, it was the Threadripper, and the price had come down.
Right.
The price is slowly inching up, where the advantage of buying that processor from Amazon is getting a little hard to justify.
There's an article in Extreme Tech about building one of those machines right now. It's a little overdone for editing video, as I understand it. It's only $6,000.
That's all. What exactly did they do for $6,000?
Oh, everything.
Send me a link to the article.
Okay, I don't know if I can. It's the physical magazine.
Oh, well, we'll have to look for it then online. I haven't looked at a magazine of somebody's in a long time, because on the web, I can look at it, I can share it, and I can bump it up so I can read it. You know, so many of these magazines are made for someone who's like in the 3rd grade. My eyes are not that good anymore. I need bigger print. That's why I use dual monitors. I use dual monitor for other things. There's a couple of new cameras coming out. It's interesting. Ubiquity Networks has a new wireless for residential. It's AirCube, could be used for commercial. I got a link up here on Malware Bytes. Menace Monday, a despicable Android adware. It's something for everyone that's got a smartphone. You might want to read it. Talks about why you're getting all this uninvited junk on your cell phone and how to block it. I've got a link up for Macrium, the Macrium Reflect Free, because remember this is the first Wednesday where we talk about cloning, imaging, and backup. You need to do that. In a couple of minutes, I'm going to show you the easy way to do that, but it's a little bit confusing with what just Windows has. We'll get to it. I've got a link up on Zone Alarm, the bad rabbit can hit you. And here's a link on Tom's Hardware about PCI SIG releases PCI Express 4.0. If you go to that link, follow that article, there's a link within there that will let you download an article about the specs. And I think it's important to have it because it marks a point in time as we're getting ready to make this giant leap. So I'm going to hold down the control key and bring up that article in PC SIG. PCI SIG releases PCI Express 4.0 specs. Now here's the roadmap. This is what I think is the most entertaining, or the most interesting. We've gone from PCI Express 1, PCI Express 2, and we've just now acquired PCI Express 3 with an AMD machine because of the Ryzen. PCI Express 4, wow, PCI Express 5.0. If AMD did what they did last time, I'm curious if they will embrace PCI Express 4.0 at the last minute, or if they'll bypass it and go to PCI Express 5. All these new machines we're building, when the new PCI Expect comes out, is going to change things because that's new motherboards, new chipsets. So PCI Express 5.0 should be good for 2020, maybe 2022. But if you notice how it's gone from 2006 to 2010 to 2017 to 2019, its time is compressing, and it's as we get further out, it's not taking as long to get it. So there's some slides there. There's a good article to read. It's worth going through and seeing what you're going to get. Again, it's about a faster computer, because why do we need that? We're doing things that we haven't been doing in the past. We're doing them faster. I remember used to, and you'd hook up a computer, you put a scanner on it, and you waited with a SCSI card for that thing to initialize, for that thing to boot, and then for that thing to work. Now you take a picture with a digital camera, you stick it in, and you're done. Or we're putting video up in places that we never would have dreamed of up the internet, where people can, we can watch them. So we're doing more. And we're not only doing more, we're doing it in higher resolution. Well, we're doing 1080 is not that big a deal. As we go forward, 4K is the big deal. 8K is coming out. Video cards are talking about how, and if you look at some of the specs for the workstation cards, they'll say, we can do 4K and we can do maybe 5K. Or we can do 4K and we can do 8K. And if that matters to you, to help future-proof, but remember, future-proof, here's the new spec coming out. So whatever you buy today, always consider, and that's what I like the information for, this is a mark in time as this technology moves. We have a mark in time where we buy something where we have the maximum amount of upgradability, the maximum amount of usability. But don't buy anything unless you're going to use it. Because if you don't use it, it's changing. You don't need it because it's changing so fast. And when you're building a machine, RAM, motherboard, and processor, try to get those three things. within that same time frame, preferably from the same vendor. But even still, you can have a bad motherboard. You can still get a bad stick of RAM. So you need to get all that stuff within that time frame and test it. Because if you don't use it, you pass that 30-day window, you're dealing with the manufacturer. So I'm just saying. So I'm going to go back over to build or buy. So we go from PCI Express. And now is that utility I told you about, custom resolution utility. LG has a monitor that's a wider display monitor. Y'all ever seen it? It's a flat monitor. Got a fairly wide bezel on it. Now, why would somebody want that? If you're working in a CAD program, if you're working even in an audio program like Cakewalk, or if you're working in a video program like, say, Magic's Vegas Video, a larger monitor gives you more room to put your controls while you're looking at your main video. But then you may have to use a utility like this so that you get that full resolution, that full width. It's a 1080 resolution, but it's not a 1080 screen. Does that make sense? Something to think about. That's why I got a link up for that utility. Now, this is something else I found interesting because I'm in the process. I want to buy a new dishwasher. I know Ben remodeled his kitchen, bought new appliances. I've been looking at a dishwasher, and after reading the articles, I have come to determine no matter what brand I buy, where I buy it is probably more important than the brand I buy because some of these high-end dishwashers and even the middle-of-the-road dishwashers, companies are not standing behind them, and they're not lasting. Anything from motors going out, circuit board seems to be the #1 issue going out, or the racks, the trays rust, and the warranty doesn't cover the rusted trays, or the wheels come off the trays, doesn't cover any of that. So as I look at this, Ben, what brand and model of dishwasher did you get? Do you remember? You got a Whirlpool. Yes, Joe.
About 2.5 or so years ago, I bought a new dishwasher, Kenmore,
You got a Kenmore.
and it is so quiet you can't even tell it's on.
Interesting.
Even sitting in the couch right behind the dishwasher.
What about your controls? Are the controls on the top edge when you open the door?
No, actually they're paneled before you open the door, and I wish they were on the top edge. But
They're on the front.
yeah.
So you got to get down and look at it.
Oh no. You can do them standing up.
You
It's
can
not
see
a
it.
problem.
Hello. Didn't Whirlpool
Hi.
run into trouble with somebody recently?
Do what?
Didn't Whirlpool run into trouble with somebody recently?
That I'm not sure. Who would that have been? Oh, that's right. I heard about that. Well, Sears is not having a real good time of things right now. So,
Okay,
Sears is not Sears. Sears is owned by Kmart. So, yes, Joe. I mean, Nick.
If you're
I
interested in
would like to, I'll send you a link to one not to buy, but Home Depot stood behind the warranty. It took them 3 or 4 trips to fix it, but the manufacturer, it was just a couple of days after the warranty died. I can't remember for sure.
And what'd you have?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. I'd rather send you the link or send you the name because I don't want to badmouth the wrong one.
Gotcha. I appreciate that.
Okay, you want anything else?
Yes.
High dollar one,
Yes.
2 drawers that pull out rather than a door that folds down. Fisher Paykel.
Fisher Macau. Interesting. Not familiar with that brand.
Well, they're expensive.
Is it like?
How many are you going to buy in your lifetime?
Good point.
Okay.
I already
Fish-
bought mine.
Fisher Macau. I was looking at one that was originally made in Europe. I believe it was called Asco. Is anybody familiar with that brand? It's supposed to be a high-end brand. Yes, Ben.
My Whirlpool is the buttons are on top, and it is you can stand beside it and you don't even know it's on. Very, very quiet.
Interesting.
My daughter bought washer and dryer Samsung a while ago,
Yes.
and they had a recall on it, and the recall, they sent the manufacturer representative in to make changes on it. I forget what the recall was about, but anyway.
Was it the cord on it, the electrical cord burning?
No. It was something else, something to do with the tub. But anyway, they come out and fixed it, but they put a label on it. It cannot be resold or used by anybody else.
Really?
It has to be scrapped when she's finished with it.
What a ripoff.
That's interesting.
That
Has
was
to
a
be
sa-
scrapped.
That was
They
a
had
Samsung.
Exploding tops.
Exploding tops.
Tops are coming off the machines.
Wow, I hadn't heard about that one. Well, this article I've got a link up on, I found it curious because here I am looking to buy The brand we've got I'm not wild about, but when I put dishes in the dishwasher, I've washed them all, period, anyway. So when I put them in, all I'm doing is really washing them and sterilizing them. I'm sterilizing, so I want one that dries. I've read some where they don't dry, the lid pops open and they dry by air dry. I'm thinking, no. I like that sanitizing heat. The brand that we have, I'm not fond of it, but it works. And Mom and I were talking the other day how long we've had it. That we bought back in 2000, so we've had it 17 years. Never had a thing done to it. So that's something to say. Now the 2 trays need to be replaced because they got some rust on them, but it's only in one concentrated spot where the coating they put on the steel has come off. It's a Maytag. But I had a Maytag washer and dryer that I hated. That Maytag washer tore up clothes. So I want to get away from Maytag. So I was looking at some high-end brands, and then I found this article, and it really concerned me. More than 500,000 dishwashers recalled due to fire risk. And as I read comments from users and read this article, I mean, this is the company that builds high-end brands like Bosch and some of those other brands. I looked at a Bosch. I found it very interesting. Then I found the one that was made in Europe that's now made by a different company because they went bankrupt. And now this one that Nick was telling me about, I'm going to go look at that one. Because it's Fisher McKell. I hope oh, would you email it to me, Jack? I appreciate that.
I made a mistake.
Yes, Joe.
That dishwasher that I have, it's so quiet, my wife bought before she passed away about a year. So it's 6 years old.
Wow.
And it's still so quiet you can't hear it running.
Well, it's interesting. When we were looking for microwaves, when we bought back in 2001, we bought a Kenmore. Bought a Kenmore microwave and bought a Kenmore stove built in. And I love both those. Can we get a mic over here on... Yes, Richard.
I did. When my wife was sick, I was clothes washer went out, and I didn't have money to replace it right away, and I was going to a washateria for a while, and but then when I decided that it's time I needed to buy one, it costing too much to go to the washateria, I started looking for the cheapest one, and one of the cheapest ones I found is made by Amana. And it's so quiet you can hardly hear it at all. And there's no way the way it agitates it could hurt clothes or anything.
Interesting.
Very $2.99 on sale.
Well, the washer and dryer we have now, I bought back in 2001. I love them both. They're great. They're the front loading. We have the issue with the odor, but you just got to clean it. That's all we're doing, which is something to think about. But I need a good dishwasher. So the places I was looking at, Home Depot and Lowe's, based on the reviews, what people are saying, I'd probably buy from Lowe's before I buy from Home Depot, but I'm really seriously considering buying it from Costco. But now that I know about this other brand, mail order?
If you go to Lowe's, there's some of the Lowe's stores.
Yes.
No, I'm sorry, Home Depot stores.
Home Depot?
Have a group of people in there that don't work for Home Depot, but they work for the appliance people.
Really?
And when those guys come out, they know what they're talking about.
Interesting.
My daughter just bought a washer dryer set from Home Depot, and as soon as she found out decided which one she wanted, they called this guy out. He came out and watched the deal up, and the washer doesn't even have agitators anymore. They just...
Yes. Yeah, our washer and dryer is like the upright. It's what brand is that? LG? Mom, do you remember the washer and dryer we have? LG. Yeah, I love it.
She bought a Samsung. So.
Looked at the Samsung. I wanted them in red, so we got a red washer and dryer.
Oh no, she wanted it in black, and she got a black one.
Had to have red. Runs better in red. Always runs better in red. Okay, let's go back to the talking point. So there's a link up about washer and dryers for those that are interested. Now, I've got a link up on Benchmark. Benchmark, if you're looking to do any kind of benchmarking for a video card, Cinebench is one. I've got a link up for it. I've got some information up here on Blender. But then there's Benchmark, which is a benchmark to CPU or your GPU and its performance in Blender. So I've got several links up on that you can look at. I've got a link up on PC World for a new laptop. Engineering.com has an article about not all benchmarks created equal. I've got a link up on the Western Digital, moving into components now for their NVMe. It's not listed as an NVMe drive, but it is. But it's only a 512. They don't have a 1 terabyte yet. So, but I've got a link into it. And because, again, this is the day for cloning imaging backup, the first Wednesday of the month, I've got a link up on AOMI Partition Assistant Standard for those that needing partition manager software beyond what Windows can do. And again, I've got a link up on Tom's Hardware about NVMe, explaining it, what you need to know, what you're looking for. And I got a link up on the Intel Optane because as we get further up the food chain, I've got another article from Dwayne about the Intel Optane for those that are interested in it. And moving into this other video I've got here on YouTube, I was reading some problems that people are having trying to install Windows on a Threadripper machine. And this goes to the I/O APIC. And the I/O APIC has to deal with initialization of the multiple processors. So apparently there's some kind of an issue in the BIOS, and people are telling you what to do. But based on what they're saying, I would say be very specific when you're building a Threadripper machine as to what you're doing for which motherboard, because they all have a different BIOS, a different implementation. But if you want some information on it, I put this up from Wikipedia about the Input Memory Management Unit, and from Level 1 Techs, Threadripper and the PCI Express bus errors. And then I got this YouTube video from a gentleman, Casters 2007, the I/O APIC multiprocessor initialization. You might want to lower the volume because when that video starts, it's a little loud. And I got a link up on the, as we move on through the technology, MSI Global, overview of the Cube 3 Silent. I also got some information from Dwayne later on about an article about this very thing. We've looked at small form factor computers that are fanless. This is MSI's version of a NUC, Next Unit of Computing, the little square computers, which I'm using one here to help me run the switch. So I've got a link up on that. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a link. And if you want to read B&H's Explorer website, where they do information with links into the products they sell about workstation graphics cards and what you're buying, they have an interesting take on things. Now, the Windows 10 Creator Recovery Drive. This is where I want to spend a little bit of time. I want to get through this real quickly. There's two ways to create a recovery drive. We're going to do this from the control panel. So I'm going to bring up the control panel, and I'm going to show you two different applications. One application, I know it's a little confusing, and why in Microsoft's infinite wisdom of changing things for the sake of change, why they didn't change this to make it easier to find. One application we're going to look at. Thanks, Jack. I appreciate that. It works. It works. I'm telling you. Is that your wife or your girlfriend? Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Girlfriend. Gotcha. If a woman answers, hang up. Okay. If another man answers, hang up. This link on Microsoft Windows 10 Creator Recovery Drive, you can do it from a thumb drive, a memory stick, a USB stick, or you can do it to a DVD. Now the question is, what will your machine allow you to restore? So I'm going to hold down the control key and bring this article up, number 32, Talking Points. And this is about creating a recovery drive, because I'm going to go through this. And it's curious, this article was last reviewed August 11th of 2017. So it should still work on this machine. So I'm going to bring up, let's go over to input number 3, computer number 3. And I'm going to go to the control panel. And I've got two applications here I'm going to show. Now the first application, I don't know why they haven't named this. Backup and restore Windows 7. That's one way to do it. And that would allow us to create a disk. If we want to do it to a USB stick, we go to this application down here that says recovery. See if I can zoom in on that. So if I want to do a USB stick, I'll go to recovery. Instead of walking through the process, I want to show you where it's at. Because in this day and time of cloning, imaging, and backup, this is always a good idea. Let me zoom back out. Okay, I'll zoom back in because we can't read it.
You know, people have to understand what recovery means.
Yep.
How restrictive that word is.
Yep. Advanced recovery tools. Create a recovery drive. Create a recovery drive to troubleshoot problems when your PC can't start. Open System Restore, configure System Restore. If you're having problems with your PC, go to Settings and try resetting it. Yeah. Sometimes the three-finger salute is the best. Now, if we want to create a recovery drive, back up system files to the recovery drive. Even if your PC can't start, you can use a recovery drive to reset it or troubleshoot. If you back up system files to this drive, you'll also be able to use it to reinstall Windows. Now, this is something I would have said do before you let Microsoft put the new version of Windows on. I went ahead and, flying by the seat of my pants, told Microsoft, go ahead, be done with it, let's do it. Because if it works, I'm going to tell about it. If it don't work, I'm really going to tell about it. So if I click on Next, let's go back over here. Please wait. Looking at the machine, analyzing. Now, I believe the minimum size of a USB stick you should have, I believe it says, is 8 gigs. 16 gigs would be preferable. But what I don't know is if they're setting this to a particular file system. For example, if this formats the disk to a FAT32, like the install of Windows does, then you want to be 32 gigs or less. Just a little something to remember. Because that's going to take longer than I want to go through, I'm going to cancel out of this. Does anybody need me to go through this any further? Okay, you know how to get into it. So I'm going to cancel it. I'm going to get out of this application. Go back to the control panel. Now I'm going to go to the other one. Backup and restore Windows. And it says Windows 7. Folks, Windows 7 has never been on this machine, but that's what it says, and it says it on every machine I've looked at. And there's a link up on Builder Buy about this one as well. Now, backup or restore your files. Backup. Windows backup has not been set up. Restore. Windows cannot find a backup for this computer. Or, right over here, create a system image, create a system repair disk. If I create a system image, or excuse me, if I create a repair disk, I'm going to do just that and create a disk. Whichever one you do should be appropriate to the machine you have, because when you start doing things like cloning, imaging, and backup, cloning especially, you need to be aware of what your file system is, what type of disk you have, whether it's MBR or GPT. Just like running the MBR to GPT utility, you need to be aware of your BIOS. Got a mic over here for Nick. He's coming.
He's getting old.
There you go.
Did you explain the difference to us between restore and recovery?
We haven't gotten into that, but we should sometime. Maybe we can get Joe to do that.
Right now?
No, would you feel like talking about it right now?
We just did, Vicky wanted to recover her laptop because somebody stole Windows 7. Windows 7 disappeared from her disk, she told me. So I said, yeah, bring it in. I want to see that. I've never seen that before. Well, when I got here, what happened was she couldn't boot. She was given the option to reinstall Windows or recover. So recovery, in this case, just reinstalled a basic Windows 10 or Windows 7, period. All the files that she had on it before, she says, now, well, where's this computer came with, with Office 2000 something, so on and so forth. That was all gone. She ended up with just strictly a Windows 10 or Windows 7 installation. Whereas restore disk restores your computer to the way it was at the time you made the disk. So if all of that Windows 10 or Windows
7
Office and stuff is on there, it'll be on there when you do it.
But if you haven't done it,
it won't do it.
It can only do what's there.
Yeah, but that's why I say image. You take a picture, which it's restore the disk the way it was. Recover means just recover Windows. At least that's the way it's worked here today. And so that's why we keep saying here, make sure you have a restore disk, which is an image, and the restore disk from that they tell you to make a restore disk. Some people have told me that you can restore from the program itself. You know, bring up Excel, reflect, and it says restore. Can't do that. You can never restore a system from the drive you're trying to restore to. That's the problem.
It's got to pull that information from someplace else.
Yeah, because the drive you're trying to restore to is locked in Windows. You cannot erase that drive. You got to go someplace else and come back and erase that drive. So those who say that you can restore it from the reflect disk itself, I'm curious about how they do that. I tried it one time and it said you can't do it.
So basically you're saying have a clone copy or an image copy of your system.
Yes.
You know, Larry.
And if you have, well, in either one, you better have the damn restore disk that lets you do that.
And a device to use to put it back on.
Yes.
It's not a popular topic, but it's an extremely important topic. We don't get a lot of people watching videos at BuilderBuy to do that, but it's extremely boring, extremely tedious.
It's exciting, but
it's extremely important.
Are you saying a course I thought is extremely boring? I'm insulted.
Well, to some people.
You done cut them.
already got that one out.
Yeah.
That one left out.
Anyway, yeah, it's really, and I can't tell you how many people come in here and ask for help on their system, and I say, well, did you bring the restore disk? Oh, I don't have one. I feel like saying, well, go back and come back when you got the restore disk.
Tell me what I can do, not what I should have done. So this is the way to create a system image or create a system repair disk. And I've got some links on some information up about how to do that. But these are two different applications that basically do the same thing. It's just the difference in the media.
On the restore disk, the last time we talked about that here, I went home to make it. I could not get it made. So just be warned.
Wait a minute. Bring that system in with a blank disk, and we'll do that next week. Yeah, we're not going to do it right now, but next week, seriously.
That's a good idea.
Bring in a blank disk, a blank CD. CD, not DVD, CD. Well, you can use a DVD, but why spend the extra money?
I'll do that.
Now, a question came up a couple of weeks ago where Ben was asking, someone had a laptop that they wanted to do a clean install of Windows on. Again, this computer probably had, what, Windows 7 on it? Or it had Windows 10 and it was messed up. Can we get a mic over here on Ben, please? Thanks, Ben.
It had Windows 7 on it. It was upgraded to Windows 8. It was upgraded to Windows 8.1, and then it was upgraded to Windows 10, and he's had nothing but problems with it. And I think what it needs is just a
clean install.
A clean install.
To Windows 10. Now, since he's done that and it's been registered with Microsoft, I take it?
Yes.
Then all he needs is to download the Windows 10 ISO, the correct one. You know, if it was upgraded to Windows 10 Pro, that's one thing. Windows 10 Home. Well, he's got to get that disk, that ISO, and install it, and he won't need the number. Microsoft has that already. And so it's just a matter of putting it in there and doing it. It's really easy.
Mic cut out again.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. It's RC, Joe. He's phoned you and talked to you. Raul, he only comes in when he wants his computer fixed.
Okay, I'll help him do that.
He's a computer illiterate, so he doesn't know which way to turn. And I won't help him because he's very particular about his computer.
What does that mean?
Well,
I got to wash my hands before I touch it, or what?
no, he's. I wouldn't touch it because I'm knowledgeable enough about it to be able to do what you want to do, clean install. So I can bring it up here and you can work on it if you want.
Okay, then I would advise two things.
Okay.
First off, make an image of the current installation. Once that's done, then we can go back and reinstall Windows. And if he doesn't like it, we can put him right back where he was.
With the image, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, does he have a disk on his machine? Does he have access to a burner on his machine?
I think he does.
Okay, good.
I think he does.
Then that would be the thing to create. The reason I say that is because depending on the age of his computer, it might not be able to boot from a USB stick.
Yeah.
But if he's got a burner in there, then it's set to boot from that burner.
Yeah. He's so frustrated with it that he's gone back to his old computer using XP.
Wow.
Tell him to come up here. And it's a good idea if, you know, once you've upgraded once or twice and everything's working okay, go back to your C drive and delete the old Windows folder, because old Windows folder takes up a lot of room that you can use for your hard drive.
Yes.
With my limited knowledge, I just think it's been upgraded too much and there's too much on the machine.
That's right. Well, yeah, and he's got one or two old Windows folders on there.
Yep.
He will have.
So get rid of those first, and then we'll bring him in. We'll talk to him.
All right.
Get him fixed up. Okay. Thanks.
Tell him we're cheap too.
Yeah. We're easy. No, we're cheap. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to Builder by Talking Points. We looked at how to do this, and we're going to be doing some more of that in the coming weeks. While we're talking about the calendar, let's look at, let's bring up computer number 3, please. I'm going to show the calendar. We're going to be here this week, next week, and the week after that. The week of Thanksgiving, we're not going to have a meeting, but we'll be back here the 29th. Now, for December, I've looked at the calendar, and it looks to me like pretty much all the days are open. And the reason it's, I think, relevant to talk about it right now is because when we went over to the memorial services for Richard Worthing's wife, we talked to Bob Luton about us coming back over to Fairhaven. So that's a possibility after the first of the year. Of all the obstacles we had, there's only 2 obstacles left. One, I was concerned about the road being rebuilt, and that's a big obstacle because Westheimer's going to get a whole lot worse real fast. The other obstacle was what was the other thing we looked at that we thought might be a problem? Sound, they've got the sound working right now. The problems that Tommy was talking about hopefully are not going to be an issue with the audio system. And they don't have a top system like this, but it's a front system because the room's been redesigned. And instead of sitting up toward the stage where we were, we would sit up in front of the table so we'd be further back in the room. So it'd be harder for people to get to that door on the side to go to the restrooms. They'll have to go to that far door, which has been the case anyway. But the screen, when we put it up, we will put it up and stick it in the room where the electrical is, where the TV's at. But there was something else that was going to be a problem. Oh, in January, I believe it is, when they do their garage sale, we'll have to look at those dates, either coming back here or not meeting on those dates. So I've got to email Bob Luton. I'll give him a call and talk to him. He called me last week after I'd done my colonoscopy, and I was too goofy to talk to anybody that makes sense about anything. And I, since then, haven't had a chance. So for right now, we're going to be here. Yes, Joe?
Microsoft has finished getting my stuff ready, and they said, let's schedule a restart time, or we can do it right now. So I'm scheduling the restart time.
Let it go ahead and do it.
Well, in 20 minutes, you think they can do it in 20 minutes?
I doubt it'll take that. What do you think? Okay, if you want to do it later, then.
Well, no, yeah. Let me just. No, let's just. Let me go back. How do you go back on this stand?
Go back.
Here we go. Yeah. The update's ready to install. So you want to try it now, 20 minutes?
Let's give it a shot and see what happens.
All right. I can always use my backup at home.
It's your computer.
Hey,
it's not going to hurt.
That's going right.
Back here.
3 sheets to the wind. Yes, sir.
I did a Microsoft upgrade, and it took 5 hours last week.
Well, if that happens here, I'll just shut this sucker down and see what happens when I bring it back
up. It took you
up.
5 hours?
Took me 5 hours. It also wiped out my ability to use the Wi-Fi printer, and it also wiped out my ability to use Microsoft Edge. I had to go back to Internet Explorer to get on the internet.
Doing you a favor, but
Well, I agree. That was in your favor not to use Edge. So. Now, we're still in Windows. This says restarting, and at some
I got
point,
this sucker backed up 7 ways from Sunday. I don't care.
at some point, Joe's computer is going to, we're going to lose the screen because when he goes to the command prompt, we're set up for dual display. And dual display, second display is what we're seeing up on the screen. So when this changes, the only way we're going to see it see if I can get this right over the shoulder. As long as Joe doesn't get up. Because at some point we'll have to change.
Is this tilted for the right angle?
Yeah, you're good. We can turn it a little bit.
I mean, for you just to see. I can see a lot, but
Just a little bit that way.
I'm up and down too. Gives them more straight on. You're looking at the difference.
That's pretty good. It's not perfect. We're at an angle, but that's better.
Yeah.
So while that's working, we'll come back to it a little bit because that's the only way we're going to see what's on that screen. It says restarting. But when it goes to the command prompt, we won't see anything until we get back into Windows. Okay, so let's go back over to computer number 4 while that's working. We're going to look at our talking points. Okay, we looked at the calendar. We're going to be here, as I said, this week and the next 2 weeks, so the 8th and the 15th, but the 22nd we won't be here. I was going to have a broadcast message together to send out. It didn't work out. I'll get another broadcast message out about next week, and we'll have another announcement about, y'all know that Glenn Ragsdale passed away. So we'll have a message we'll send out about his memorial service, which is going to be next Thursday, to tell everybody about it. Let's go back over here to computer number 4. Okay, I mentioned about the recovery drive, the Windows 10 Fall Critters update, everything you need to know about Microsoft's big upgrade, the difference between AR and VR, the GPU monitor, I showed you that. Now, there's a couple of links up here I'm going to skip on by. Let's see, Microsoft right here, Microsoft Docs 23 and 24. One of these about what's new in Windows 10 version 1709. I'm going to bring both of these up. Well, I'll get on the right keyboard. 1709, hold down the control key. And then 1709 IT Pro content. Now the IT Pro content I'm going to go to first. And it talks about deployment, Windows Autopilot, subscription activation, automatic redeployment update, Insider program for business, the mobile device management, mixed reality apps, configuration, kiosk, security. The one I'm looking for, let me go back to the other one. What's new? New in design. This may be where it's at. Security guidelines, customization, options. Windows PE change, media codec. This is the one I was looking for right here. Let me bump that up just a little bit. Starting with Windows 10 version 1709, media codecs starting with MPEG-2 and HEVC are now being distributed as part of the app update OPK. Add the HEVC media codec and its dependencies to your Windows image prior to shipping a device. So to me, that's a big deal. You're going to be seeing a lot more about HEVC. Now, I've got a link up here, number 21, on the Corsair Threadripper CPU. This is, I thought, a really good link from Corsair because it's not just about putting their cooler on, but it's about getting the CPU in the socket. It's a fairly lengthy article, but I think it's a good article. And again, another Microsoft Docs, MBR2 to GPT, if you want to read it. Microsoft Mechanics, the shift from BIOS to Unified EFI, and the Windows 10 Critters update as it relates to the MBR GPT conversion tool. And again, some more stuff with MBR to GPT. I don't want to show that because when you go from MBR to GPT, you're going from BIOS to Unified EFI. That should be set when you install Windows. To change it, if you don't have everything set up, and in other words, if your machine doesn't support it, you'll end up with a machine that won't boot. So doing it from the start when it installs is the smarter way to go, the simpler way to go, the easier way to go. And all new machines that have a Unified EFI BIOS are going to install that disk as a GPT disk. So it's a given down the line. Now, the links I got from Dwayne Hendricks, I mentioned about the MSI fanless PC. There's a link to that down at the bottom. He mentioned about the Intel Optane and ADATA launches some new SSDs, bigger, better price too. Windows Central, the new Ryzen notebook chips with the Radeon Vega graphics. And then best SSDs of 2017. I think we all have a pretty same opinion of SSDs, which ones to use, which kind of brings me to the specs we got up on Build or Buy. I'm going to redo the specs. I'm taking the APU to a lower standing because I can't see justifying building those machines based on some of the things I've seen with some of the new products, like the CamLink. That's a low-end product, but it needs a high-end processor to do what it does. So probably the lowest end machine is going to be an FX machine. The issue is going to be putting a video card in it. And that remains to be seen how that plays out. But on the high end, I'm going to show the X299 chipset from Intel and the X399 chipset from AMD. So I'm going to redo the specs. And there's a new link to an MSI, a new laptop they've got out. You know, always in search of a new laptop. Until I find the one that I call bang for the buck, like those Asus Zens, always looking for one. And I've even got a link up, believe it or not, to a new video camera on Macworld. You can take a look at that. So there's 3 camera links in here. And the program we use for doing our titles, New Blue Effects, has just upgraded as of last night. It's available. Tom's Hardware did a review of an Acer Predator Helios, another laptop. And for those that are interested in photography, there was an event, Photo Plus Expo 2017, Extreme Link products. And I've got a link up to FutureMark on best graphics cards. That's pretty much what I've got, a little more than usual. I like to keep it simple. The things I wanted to show you were 3 things. One, talk about Windows, the new build of Windows 10, 1709, the stuff that I think are important. I showed you some of the stuff that Microsoft's talked about. And as we go throughout and this plays out, I'm going to be curious to see how more people get this installed. I hope you're going to have a successful install. The other thing I showed you were a couple of keyboard shortcuts that Ed already knew about, that he was hiding, not telling the rest of us about. I hope you found that useful, how to get to the zoom function within Windows and how to get to the zoom function also within the browser. Start plus minus or control plus minus. And we talked a little bit about hardware, a little about software, and I told you about the Ryzen computers that are available at Costco. So, anybody got any questions? Let's see how we're doing on computer number 4. Number 4. That's not number 4. Go to number 4. Camera number 4. Camera number 4. There we go. Thank you. Remember, input number 1 is computer number 1. And computer number 1 we can't see for the reasons I talked about a while ago. We can't see computer number 1 because for dual display, that's how we see what's on that computer is through the HDMI. Until we get back into Windows, we will not have HDMI. So the other way we see this computer is the way we're seeing it now, and that's through a camera. And this says...
We got update, they're working on updates 15%.
Don't turn your PC off. This is going to take a while. So, now for any Q&A...
And the bottom line says, PC will restart several times.
Yes. Well, the Ryzen machine didn't take long, but, you know, define long. I went and ate supper and come back and it was done. So does anybody have any questions? Do what? Let's get a mic over there. On Mel? Thank you.
Oh, the only meeting we're not having is the week of Thanksgiving, correct?
Correct. It's the antennas.
The way the December falls, we're clear.
Well, the way the December falls looks like we're clear.
Yep, okay. Thanks.
And for January, I see pretty much the same thing. So we're going to be here at Chapelwood until we figure out those two issues I mentioned. And I'm going to contact Bob and find out. So I'm looking at the calendar for, let me go over here to this other computer I was at. I'm looking at the calendar for November, calendar for December, calendar for January. As long as the facilities are open, we shouldn't have any issues. But we've got to find out at Fairhaven when they're going to have the garage sale. And I think that was at the end of January. Does that sound right? Do you remember, Richard? Yeah, I don't remember either. I'll contact Bob and find out. So for right now, we're going to be here at Chapelwood until we get those other two issues solved. One, when they're going to have their garage sale, and two, when they're going to do the road. Because right now, Long Point, even though it's around the corner, it's the way to get out of there, and it's getting ready to be a mess. So this is where we're going to be. Oh, Andrew, glad to see you. Didn't realize you came in. Glad you're here. So how are we doing on Joe's computer? Flip back over to that.
33%.
Kind of like watching grass grow.
It's already had 2 restarts.
Well, I'm curious to see when it comes back up. Something else to note, when I got Windows 1709 on here, y'all know I use the desktop gadgets. Well, the little box popped up with a gadget and says, do you want to repair it? I said, yes. And I didn't think anything happened. It repaired the gadgets, but I had to go back manually and add all my gadgets back in, which was kind of annoying, but one weather application was automatically configured and stayed that way. 2 other weather applications and a time application I use, I had to reconfigure. But the network monitor that I use, I'm going to right click on this. Let's go to computer number 3. Computer number 3. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to look at gadgets while that computer's working right quick. I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay, I like having access to the CPU meter. I like to know what my cores are doing. And then on page number 2, well, I also use the standard clock. I like the clock, and I like to put the second hand on it. I had to reconfigure that. But I also liked, and I haven't used the GPU meter because it used to be dependent on another application. And I used to use this network meter, but now instead of network meter, I use network monitor. I prefer the view it gives. And I have that turned off. But I like this HUD display of time because I can put that on the computer and show just the time. And on dual display, I can set the dual display so the second display doesn't show the taskbar, and I can have just that time over there. That's why I have this set up for black wallpaper. Because me using this computer, the Ryzen, I've got the Ryzen doing like 3 different things. I wouldn't do that using a regular FX machine. And what I'm curious is, even though I'm doing 3 things, I'm curious if I can do 4 things. In other words, can I use this computer to also stream with? I think I can. I haven't been brave enough to try it yet because we had the other application break on us a couple times.
How many CPUs do you have in that Ryzen machine?
Well, it's one CPU.
How many cores, though?
But it's, let me go back over to that application.
It's like the one I'm using here at home is a 6-core.
I've got 8 cores, 16 threads.
Okay. You should be able to do a lot then with that.
Yes. But there it is. 8 cores, 16 threads. It says 16 cores, but 8 cores, 16 threads. But I'm doing more with that computer than I did with the other one. And as I get ready to build the Ryzen machine, I'm going to go through and test the components. Testing the video card. I can test the RAM, check out the power supply, plug it into an existing system, make sure it works. But when it comes down to motherboard and processor, those 2 things I need in the same time frame so I can plug those in and see if they're going to work. It's not like buy one, buy the other one later. In the case, I'm dealing with issues with it right now. I've narrowed down from 3, I'm down to 2 cases, and I'm looking at a Corsair case and a Lee & Lee case. And I'm going to look at the 2 of them with the cooler and see which one works best, because I need to be able to bring the machine up here. So I've got issues with space, size, height, width, depth. All that matters. Let me zoom back out on this. Let's go back over to Joe's computer. How we doing?
54%.
It's coming along.
It ain't going to make it.
I wanted to see how it was going to go.
I'm going to unplug this sucker, close it, and wrap it up. Actually, what I'm going to do, seriously, first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the internet connection to see if that will, if it'll notice that and say you got an internet problem, fix it, and it'll go into its own halt state.
Yeah, that's curious.
And if it goes into its own halt, like reboot now, if it goes into its own halt state, then I can recover quicker. If not, I don't know what is going to happen. I'll just happen to. This battery's 9 years old. You think it's going to be very charged? I go from 100% charge to shutdown in about 5 minutes.
Okay, we've gone to the command prompt. Now it looks like we're going back into Windows.
Yeah, this is the 4th one, so it's going to be back to about 50 to 60%. $75%.
Yeah, we're seeing Windows coming up. I'm trying something with the graphics to see if this is working.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Curious. Learning experience every time we do this. So where are we at on it?
75,
It's coming
78.
along. It's coming along pretty good. Well, so far the experience is working. Has anybody got any other questions or comments? I kind of want to stay with this until Joe gets this done. Are y'all game? Okay.
We're leaving around 3 o'clock. I got an appointment.
You got 3 minutes.
A doctor's appointment. And,
okay. We'll shut it off in 3 minutes. For those that are watching online, we're going to shut it off in 3 minutes. We're going through the install, or the upgrade actually, of Windows 10 build 1709. And how old is this laptop? 5 years? 8 years?
No, I bought it in 2008, so it's 9 years old now.
2008, 9-year-old laptop. Yeah. Well, again, I'm curious how Microsoft defines and decides what hardware they're doing this on. Since we've been up here, though, the Intel NUC that I use up here, it's wanting to upgrade. I'm not about to let it right now. I'm glad Joe doesn't mind being a guinea pig.
Well, I don't mind. This is interesting because if I do have to shut it down.
Yes.
And first thing I disconnect is the internet, and if it goes into automatic, stop state, that's something I don't know.
Yeah.
That we will all have learned that.
We're going to find out.
And if that doesn't, and it just shuts down when I pull the plug, the power plug, or turn it off, then starting it back up, we'll find out where it happens and what it does.
Yes.
How much trouble I have. So at least we've learned something from this thing.
I agree.
Then when I bring in my new laptop.
How far along are you?
Oh, I'm not in the buy mode yet. Look at this thing. It's 9 years old. It's still going great.
You've gotten better usage, more mileage out of that laptop than I get out of a lot of desktops that I build. 8 years.
Well, keep in mind though, this is primarily up here.
Yes.
I don't do all that. I keep it at home and I have it plugged in and I work with it, but I don't do a lot of work with it at home. So
It's not a primary machine.
oh no. Tertiary machine at best.
Gotcha. Well, for me, the Ryzen, when I first built it, it was an experiment. It's become a secondary machine, and it's going to be quickly becoming a primary machine.
Well, we're at 94%.
Just about. Yes, sir. We're still online. Want to get a mic so we can hear you? It is important. It is important for everybody else to hear. Like I said, we're still online. We're still streaming. Okay, it's 3 o'clock. Are you going to keep going, or are you going to let it finish?
It's 98%. I got this.
Mighty close. Mighty close.
I'll let it go through I'll give it 5 minutes.
You call the time, and then that's when we'll do it.
I'll give it 5 minutes max.
Okay? Because I'm going to stay with it until you say.
What? That's okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'll just.
For those that are just now tuning in, this is live. This is Builder by Live, and we are installing Windows 10, build 1709, on an 8-year-old laptop. Microsoft decided to install it. And at the moment, working on updates, 98%. Don't turn off your PC. This will take a while. I wonder what would happen if you turned off your PC. It might corrupt the disk.
That's what we're going to find out.
One way to find out, when you get ready. So until that happens.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, it got to 100% now. Okay, the screen
Restart.
just went blank. Let's go to camera number 4. Camera number 4.
Hey, well, look at that.
That's all right. Hey, look at there. It popped right back
Change my
up.
picture. Change
your wallpaper. So Joe is now in.
This is my I got a wallpaper like this at home, except there's a lightning strike that comes right down and hits me right in the middle of the head. And that's where I get my energy from.
Aha. We've got some updates. Here we go.
Oh, no, we're not going to screw around with that.
Okay, so you're going to shut it off?
This might take, yes. What I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to unplug it here.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, folks, I want to thank you for joining us today. We're going to shut this machine down. We'll tell you what happens next week. Thanks for joining us. We meet every Wednesday from 1 to 3. Have a great day, and if you found this useful, we'd appreciate a like, a thumbs up, and please subscribe.
And now we're on battery.
Welcome to Builder By, and we'll see you next week, same time. Have a great day.